What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. And of course, joining me on this fabulous Monday, Chris Fedor, Jimmy Watkins, and we are here after the Cavs' latest win, a sweep of the Miami Heat, a historic 55-point victory, 138-83 over Miami on their home turf. And I know we have so much to get into, but just some historical facts from tonight's matchup. The 55-point win is the fourth largest margin of victory in NBA playoff history, right? And we also know that the franchise playoff record for points was set for the Cavs with 138 tonight. The previous team playoff mark was 137 against the Golden State Warriors on June 9th, 2017. Sure, there'll be more facts to go along as we continue the podcast. But Chris, you are in the building, and we know that this is the second time in as many games that the Cavs have planted the worst loss in playoff franchise history for the Miami Heat. What was it like to witness a game that was over, probably even could be said by the end of the first quarter? We'll make it by the end of halftime just to be nice.
Easiest game story I've ever written in my entire life. Didn't have to worry about the starters' point totals changing in the fourth quarter. Didn't have to worry about the lead changing or the conclusion changing. Easiest game story I've ever written in my entire life. And it was very, very quiet inside Kaseya Center tonight. There were a couple hilarious moments throughout the course of the game. One of them where, man, the poor in-arena announcer, he was trying so hard. So the in-arena announcer gets on the mic, and I think it's the fourth quarter at this point, and they're trying to do their thing where they swag surf. It's the thing that they do every start of every fourth quarter. And he literally says into the microphone, "If you're still here with us, it's time to swag surf." Because he knew so many people had departed by that point in time. There are so many other things that you can do on a Monday night in Miami other than watch your team get boned by the Cavs in historic fashion. So that was a hilarious moment. Then there was another one in the second half where they play all these different songs during these timeouts and whatnot. And one of them that they chose, and I don't know if they did this on purpose, but they chose Lenny Kravitz, "I Want to Get Away." So just think about the lyrics. And it was so fitting for what the game was, because it felt like Miami just wanted to get away. They wanted to fly away, far, far, far away from Miami. And, I think there are so many different things that you can point to about this game. But the level of focus, the level of professionalism, the level of maturity that this team showed, all of these different characteristics that people thought they did not have, all of these different things that were representative of, champions of the past that at various points over the last couple of years you wondered about with these Cavs. For them to come down to Miami, play with the level of focus, intensity, attention to detail, all these different things, man, it just shows a lot of growth from this basketball team. And I think it starts with the leadership. It starts with Donovan Mitchell. It starts with Jarrett Allen. It starts with Max Strus and a text message that he sent to the group chat one night earlier on the eve of Game 4, telling them to take care of business and make sure that they had the right approach so that they could capitalize on the rest opportunity that is coming for them. This is a group of killers now, guys. They have a killer instinct. They have a championship level mentality, and one series win against Miami, a completely overmatched Miami team that is a flawed roster that is going to get overhauled this offseason. Like, it doesn't say that, hey, the Cavs are the best team in the NBA. They're definitely going to win a championship. but it just reaffirms that they're one of the few teams in the NBA that certainly can.
Yeah, the Cavs broke a team's will tonight. I mean, you could argue that we were talking about this.
I think they broke the team's will in game 2 when Donovan went superhero and Miami kind of looked like, what are we supposed to do now?
Right. Cavs broke a team's will, and then you saw what happened afterwards. And this is an Eric Spoelstra coached team. That doesn't happen easily. Now, it's a shell of an Eric Spoelstra coached team. They traded their best player midway through the season. These are not this team's going to look different next year. This is not the team that Eric Spoelstra would assemble if he had his druthers. But like guys like Bam Adebayo, that's not an easy dude to break. Okay,
right.
He's a tough dude. He's a bad you know what. He drifted through the final few games of this series. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. Tyler Hero's been through some wars. I don't think he's Bam Adebayo between the years, but he's been through some wars. Broke him. 4 points, 1 of 10 shooting. He shot as many free throws in the last 2 games combined as Javonte Green shot tonight. That would be 4. We can play many games with Tyler Hero's box score stats and what he should have said and shouldn't have said between the games. It's a bad defense to play when they're top blocking me. Really, dude? You made 1 shot tonight. I don't know. I think it worked, personally. We're not going down 4-0. Wrong again. Maybe pass the mic next time. Lesson learned. Yeah, I think there are bigger challenges ahead. I think we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. Everyone who follows this team, bigger challenges ahead. Out rhyming the whatever's left of the Miami Heat here. They ain't showing me where you're weight at. Okay. But man, this is such a dominant performance. Best point differential since at least 1997 after a first round series. That's as far back as the NBA.com data goes. Some of the other plus 20-ish teams is not like, I wish I had written this down. There's a lot of really good teams that didn't quite get over the top, which is interesting to me. But what everything that Chris said is true. I don't think the Cavs didn't need this reaffirmation, but after a weird end to the regular season, I do think that the discussion around them had just kind of lost the plot a little bit. I think when a team's good for so long, it gets stale, and you look to poke holes, right? And that started happening toward the end of the season. And I think we all, in the back of our minds, kind of figured a playoff reset was coming. But this was every question that you could answer in this series, the Cavs answered with an exclamation point.
So they outscored the Heat by 122 combined points over the 4 games. That is the largest total point differential in any NBA playoff series ever.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Like, that's the level of dominance that this team showed. And look, throughout the course of the regular season, there were various points that the Cavs showed this same level of dominance. There's a reason why they had a historically great offense, one of the greatest offenses that we had ever seen. And yeah, there were questions about, hey, how's that going to translate to the playoffs? Or what is that level going to look like when they get into playoff basketball and teams are more familiar with their system? And there's more detailed scouting reports, and it's about trying to find some deficiencies and poke holes in those. I think the thing that this shows is that even against a great defense, there aren't a lot of solutions for slowing down this Cavs offense. Like, this thing was a machine during the regular season, and it was a machine in this series against Miami. And they played the final 2 games without their second leading scorer in the postseason. in Darius Garland, who was very, very good in the first 2 games against Miami. So you just start thinking about the possibilities as we move forward. And I just don't know that there are a lot of teams out there that are going to have the kind of personnel that's required to deal with everything that the Cavs can throw at an opposing defense, and then also have the personnel at the other end of the floor that can find the solutions to attacking the Cavs defense, which, by the way, found itself again in this series against Miami. And I totally understand. Miami is a flawed offense. Miami stops itself. There were times where they were just, I don't know what they were trying to run offensively. Like Tyler Hero made one cut, got shoved physically off the baseline, and like decided that he didn't want to play the rest of that possession. Bam Adebayo was on a different planet over the final 2 games because Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley are really, really great defenders, and dealing with those guys over the course of a series is going to be frustrating. But so I know Miami stops itself on offense, but the Cavs defense that they had been talking about being and priding themselves on, like that defense showed itself again. Miami couldn't do anything offensively in the final 2 games of this series. And if that kind of defense, again, every single series is going to be different, but if that level of attention to detail, if that level of focus, if that level of physicality, if that level of competitiveness and toughness and all those different things, like if that carries over, the Cavs are going to be a problem for anybody to deal with on defense as well. Like defense might have been the area where the slippage happened and where teams might say, we might be able to attack here. We might be able to pull Evan Mobley out to the perimeter. We might be able to go at Darius Garland. We might be able to go at Max Strus and stuff like that. Like that's still a strength of this team. And they're still going to provide a lot of problems for various opponents, because not a lot of teams have the personnel that is going to be required to deal with the Cavs.
100%. And I think, Chris, what you were kind of getting into is that not only were the Cavs dominating the Miami Heat, but they were also making a point for everybody else that they're going to face next, whether that's the Indiana Pacers or if Milwaukee somehow pulls off a comeback. I don't see that happening. And then looking even further to the Eastern Conference Finals, whoever they may face, potentially Boston, like, hey, these are not the same players as they were last year, right? Like Max Strus, as you mentioned, getting attacked. He was the guy that sent the message before the game. And then ironically enough, obviously we understood how dominant the Cavs were on the interior in game 3. So obviously it's likely that Kenny Atkinson wanted to go back to that. And then the first play of the game, Jarrett Allen gets a steal on the perimeter to lead to a fast break dunk to start the game off, right? That is indicative of what this Cavs team has been showing this entire season. Sure, you might think what we're going to do, but we're going to prove to you that we can do both of what you think we're good at, or we're going to prove you wrong in thinking what we haven't been able to be successful at. We're going to do that as well. And Eric Spoelstra mentioned it after the game. Like, we were confident coming into this series. We understood like who we were, but we were humbled, embarrassed, led to the realization that we were not ready for this. And sure, he credited Kenny Atkinson, the Cavs talent, and all these things. But the reality of it is it feels like the Cavs are going to make this realization apparent for not just the Miami Heat. It's the teams that they're going to face next as well. And mentioning Jarrett Allen in that start, I think it's important to note that Jarrett Allen, a 6'9" center, finished the game with 6 steals, tied for the Cavs' franchise playoff record for steals in a game, and he had 4 in the first quarter. And I know we talked a lot about it last year and how great Jarrett Allen was in the first 3 games of that playoff series against the Orlando Magic. It feels like the 82 games of him playing straight was not just a formality. It was not just him saying, oh, I can be available. No, it's him saying, in the playoff environment, y'all remember how good I was. I'm gonna be that again. And I think it was kind of shown in his mindset, just what he was wearing to the post-game interview with Donovan Mitchell. He was still in his tank top after the game. Donovan was in his fitted up, trying to go back into the Miami Lights. Chris, to see Jarrett Allen be in this version of himself once again in the playoffs, I know he has this narrative about him that followed him from their first playoff series. It feels like not only last year kind of cracked the armor a little bit on that narrative, but this year he's trying to just busting all the way through it.
Well, look, I mean, I think the truth is, as the Cavs go through this playoff gauntlet, there just aren't the types of players that are going to bother Jarrett Allen. They're just not out there. Alperen Şengün's in the Western Conference. Domas Sabonis didn't make it, and he's in the Western Conference. So, like, there's a type of player that can bother Jarrett Allen that he struggles with physically. It happens. There are lots of guys around the NBA that have a certain type that can bother them, that can make things difficult on them. But it's not everybody. And it certainly wasn't Bam Adebayo, and it wasn't Khalil Ware, and it wasn't Kyle Anderson when they tried to use him. So as we move forward, Miles Turner's not that kind of guy either. He presents different challenges because he's a 5-out guy, and that means Jarrett's got to go out to the perimeter and honor the 3-point shot to a different level than what he had to in this series against Miami and Bam, even though Bam has improved as a 3-point shooter. And it would be Brook Lopez in the same kind of way. And then as we move forward, Kristaps Porzingis, we all know that. So it's just like, this is an opportunity for Jarrett to show his toughness, show his physicality, finish possessions on the defensive end of the floor with these rebounds. And they're going to continue to get him involved on the offensive end of the floor. But like, I think the main thing that Jarrett did in this series against Miami, especially game 4 tonight, is he set the tone. He set the tone. He was aggressive. He was physical. He was relentless. He never stopped. He extended his defense out to the perimeter. That bothered Bam Adebayo. That bothered Miami's defense. He just made things really, really tough on Miami for a majority of this series. And I don't think there's any reason for anybody to think that Jarrett can't continue this into the next round and the next round, because the type of player that has a tendency to bother him no longer exists during this playoff run.
That's true, but I mean, the Orlando Magic of last year were a really big physical team. Not necessarily at Jarrett's position, but they were physical.
Yeah,
the Miami Heat
are going to be in Cancun in a day.
That's what the Heat hang their hat on. This is like, the Heat are, you know what? Maybe we're not the most talented bunch, but we're going to out-scrap you. And Bam, Bam Adebayo's undersized. So is Jarrett. The Heat are playing two bigs. Like, I know there's no Mitchell Robinson out there. No, there's no Domas. No, there's no Alpi Şengün, who may also be heading to Cancun in a bit here. Yeah. But I still think that the way Jarrett has responded from the initial Cavs introduction to the playoffs is to be commended for its own right, for his own role in that. Against that, I was looking through the box scores today. Knicks series, it's even worse than you remember. Certain ways, there's 3 games where Jarrett's under 10 points. 3 games where he's 5 rebounds or fewer. What are you doing out there?
Yeah.
What are you doing out there? Since then, he's 16-12. This is before tonight. 16-12, 78% from the floor. And tonight he goes 14-12 and 6 steals. And is the spiritual leader. That's the other thing. Jarrett Allen is he's not Evan Mobley. Like, you can hear him speak when he speaks. Then the Cavs aren't working with Jarrett Allen on how to use his voice as much, but he is more of a reserved personality, right? And for so for him to be setting the physical tone, the level of engagement, as it were, tonight, I think that's another significant breakthrough for him based on where this conversation started 2 years ago.
I think that's a great point because when we look back to the Knicks series, and I don't want to go through this rabbit hole because a lot of Cavs fans hate reliving that, and understandably so, right? So I think when we look back to that, we see the worst of what was possible, and now we're getting to the point where we're like breaking new ground. And I think it's important that all of the Cavs players that were on that team have now gained that experience, right? That's one of the other biggest things with this Miami Heat team, right? Like they have Bam, they have Duncan Robinson, they have Tyler Hero. That's mainly the players from the run that they made in the NBA Finals a few years ago. But now the Cavs have this understanding of exactly who they are and what they want to do, plus adding in different pieces like Max Strus and DeAndre Hunter, who already have that championship level pedigree, whether it's in NCAA or in the NBA as well. So I also think when we talk about how important this Cavs depth has been, and we talk about the minute allocation and all these things, right? This is a game where nobody had to play 30 minutes for the Cavs. And I think when you talk about how important that is, the rest factor and all these things, it's also looking at how efficient they were, right? If you erased all the Cavs 2-point makes tonight and only counted their made threes and free throws, they still would have beaten Miami 88-83. I mean, that's utter domination in every facet of the word. And when you talk about how this team has grown, I think it's in multiple different areas that have proven that they can win in different ways. They can change their styles. Their unpredictability has become their greatest weapon. And as we know, the versatility and unpredictability is the biggest thing when it comes to playoff success.
Well, that's the thing. They have principles on the offensive end of the floor, and Kenny Atkinson likes to make that known. But there is a level of chaos to this offense. Kenny likes to call it controlled chaos. And I think that's true, and it plays itself out. And there are so many different actions that they run within one set. And if a team starts to try and take something away, they have a counter for that. And their understanding of what that counter is, because they used a lot of their regular season to experiment with different sets, with different situations, with different schemes on the offensive end and on the defensive end of the floor. So I just don't know. When you're playing against the Cavs, you always have to try and pick your poison. You always have to try and see if there's something that you can take away, because you just don't want to give up everything. But I just don't know what the best formula for success is when playing against this offensive machine. It was interesting because in game one, DeAndre Hunter was basically a non-factor. And we talked about that in a podcast. And we were talking about how that was obviously going to change moving forward because he's just too important to everything that they do at both ends of the floor. And there's a reason why the Cavs went out at the trade deadline and they identified him specifically, not as a missing piece, but as a needed component to kind of help them take that next step. So, game one, he throws up a goose egg and his minutes aren't as high as what a lot of people expected coming into the series. So he sits down with the coaching staff and they go over film together and they put in sets specifically for DeAndre Hunter. They have a conversation about where do you like your touches? Where do you think you can be most effective within the offense? Okay, here's what we think. So they put in new plays and new sets specifically for DeAndre to help unlock him, to unleash a different component of this offense on Miami as the series continued on. But that's just one example. They can do that with a bunch of different guys and in a bunch of different ways. So it just shows the level of versatility that they have. It shows the level of unpredictability within this offense. And it shows how right when a defense thinks they're going to take something away. For example, they sent 2 at Ty Jerome over and over and over again in game 4.
It's just
And
a
what did he do?
normal thing now. It's just a
I
normal
know.
thing now. We trap Ty
It's
Jerome on pick and rolls.
becoming normal. What does he do? He calmly takes that. He gets off the ball. He finds DeAndre Hunter. He finds whoever the outlet is going to be and allows that guy to play in a 4-on-3 situation. So there's a bunch of different things that Miami tried. There's a bunch of different things that the Cavs saw throughout the course of this series that I think they're going to benefit from moving forward. But none of it worked.
To Chris's point, just a couple of numbers that hit home. The chaos agent that is the Cavs offense. Coming in today, I think they're going to finish this way. 7 guys average double figures in this series. I think 7 guys were shooting 40% from 3. Small sample size, I get it, but that's crazy. But to me, the craziest number, maybe the most under-discussed number when it comes to this offense, because this, again, we're talking a lot of Warriors principles here. Same idea where the offense can come from anywhere. And there's so much up-ball movement and cutting, and everyone ideally on the court can pass, shoot, dribble, can trigger the offense. That's why it's so hard to defend, right? So what happens with Golden State, their biggest weak point on offense for years has been turnovers, because they have some ambitious passers. Steph is one of the worst defenders. They have some ambitious passers on their team. They throw the ball around like crazy. And when you're doing a lot of read and react, sometimes you cross your signals, right? The Cavs were top 5 in assist turnover ratio all year. And they were 3 percentage points lower in turnover rate in this series against Miami, who, again, it's kind of a shell of a Miami roster, but like Davion Mitchell is a quality perimeter defender. Andrew Wiggins has defensive tools. Mm-hmm. When they were able to trot Bam Adebayo and Kel'el Ware out there, 2 bigs, like that's not nothing. That's not nothing to sneeze at. Okay, the Cavs just lit it on fire because they can come and hit you from so many different directions. Now, I do think a good chunk of that was due to the idea that because the Cavs defense came alive and was so good, they were playing in transition more, and or at least against they saw fewer set defenses from Miami, and they could get cross matches and that sort of thing. The defense fed into their offense. Against better offenses, assuming it's Indiana, you're going to have to see more set defense. Now, Indiana has some – Tyrese Halliburton's a guy you can attack, Mm-hmm. There's going to be opportunities out there for the Cavs in different ways. But to me, the Kenny's calling it, a chaos-type offense, but there's no chaos. Like you're always getting shots up, which sounds like such a simple thing, but it's so valuable in these playoff games, especially when, of course, your roster is littered with great shot makers, great shooters.
Jimmy, I think that's a great point. And just because you were going into this a little bit at the beginning, I grabbed some numbers. Donovan Mitchell averaged 24 points in this series, 48% from the field, and 46% from deep. Evan Mobley averaged 16 points, 60% from the field, 47% from deep. Ty Jerome, 16 points, 52% from the field, 50% from deep. DeAndre Hunter, 13 points per game, 49% from the field, 62% from beyond the arc. And Jarrett Allen, as we know, 14 points, 78% from the field. It has been a dominant showing of the offense that we all have known and have all agreed is one of the best in NBA history, not just in this season. But guys, as we continue this podcast, I got a couple more things that I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to leave it up to you. Do we have some fun and get into a little bit more sillier stuff, or we keep it strict and keep it on the straight and narrow?
I'm always up for fun.
Okay. So, Chris, being in Miami, seeing what
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell was wearing at post game tonight, did the Cavs earn the right to go out tonight after their win to celebrate, especially with their next game likely coming on Saturday? I don't know what their flight schedule looks like. There was some speculation on the broadcast about them flying back to Cleveland tonight. Is that the case, or are the Cavs getting their party on in Miami Beach tonight?
Kenny left it up to the players, each individual player. And I think some of them are coming home because there was a flight that was leaving Miami, a Cavs charter flight that was leaving Miami later tonight. But I will tell you that not every Cavs player is on that flight. A lot of them have reservations at restaurants, either Miami Beach, Brickell area, you name it. They're going to be scattered across. And look, I think the thing about this Cavs team is that they can balance the two. They have shown that they can balance the two. They can have fun. They can joke with each other. They can keep it loose and lighthearted. But when it's time, they can lock in. They can balance the two. And I think you have to. It reminds me so much of the Golden State Warriors. Everything about the Golden State Warriors was about the joy that they played with, the fun environment, cracking jokes at each other, all those different elements that Kenny brought from Golden State. But they also won championship after championship after championship. There was a level of maturity. There was a level of professionalism. There was a level of determination. There was a level of competitiveness. There was an understanding of, all right, when it's time, it's time. And so the Cavs have no clue who they're going to play in the Eastern Conference semifinals. The earliest that they would play, unless the NBA completely changes the schedule, which is not going to happen because they don't usually do that. So I'd be surprised if it happened. The earliest that they could play is Saturday. That is a long time away. So this allows them to decompress. This allows them to relax a little bit. This allows them to have a moment to show appreciation for what they were able to accomplish in this series. Guys, winning by 55, I don't care. I don't care if it's Miami and they're terrible. I don't care if Miami doesn't have Jimmy Butler. I don't care about the fact that they only have one person who can consistently dribble, and that's Tyler Hero. Like, winning by 55 in a playoff game, in a closeout game on the road, that's not normal. So they have earned the right to celebrate that a little bit. They have earned the right to take a step back and appreciate that a little bit before they start the grind of getting into Eastern Conference semifinal mode against probably Indiana.
Jimmy, have you had a week-long hangover before? Because I know, like, if guys are going out in Miami,
week-long hangovers don't exist, because to have a week-long hangover, you have to drink for a couple of days, and that's, at that point, your hangover is over by about the third beer, in my experience.
all right. So, but I'm saying, if these guys get to do the rest versus rush factor again, I think having the experience of doing that already is definitely going to be helpful. There's not going to be this hangover effect, literally or figuratively, however you want to point it, for them celebrating what they were able to accomplish against the Miami Heat, and then facing whoever they do, whether it's the Indiana Pacers or the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, like we said, and like Chris mentioned, again, likely the Indiana Pacers with everything that the Bucks are going through. Jimmy, what do you
Point
think?
on that right now when it comes to the Cavs, and look, Indiana is going to be a challenge. There are things that Indiana does at such a high level that are going to be different than what the Cavs experienced against Miami. They're not going to win back-to-back games by a total of 92 points against Indiana. I can tell you that much. Because it's just a different level of competition. It's a different level of experience. It's a different level of depth, talent, all those things. But I'm at this point with the Cavs where I don't think a lot matters. Like, we can sit here and we can have the rest versus rust. It's not going to matter to the Cavs. It's not. Like, the only thing that stands in their way is the Boston Celtics if they're at full strength. That's it. Like, that's the only thing that I think can prevent the Cavs from getting to the NBA Finals. I
Mr.
think it's a
Respect the
complete roster.
Pacers, not respecting the Pacers very much right now.
I think they can
One of your
compete with
favorite
them.
players, Tyrese Halliburton. Hold on. Now
I think they
respecting
can compete
Tyrese.
with them. I think they're going to provide problems. They might win a game or two, but in the playoffs, you are required to beat the team 4 times in 7 tries. I don't think Indy's capable of it. I don't think Milwaukee's capable of it. I think the only team in the East that's capable of it is Boston, but I felt that way coming into the playoffs. That doesn't mean that, Indy's going to be a pushover or the Cavs are going to bring out the brooms again. It's just they are playing at such a high level. They have so much depth. They have so much diversity. They have so much skill. They have so much talent. It's a complete roster that it's going to take the Cavs being a little bit underwhelming to their own standard and a team kind of playing above their heads. That's what is going to be required. The margin for error is going to be so small because they put that level throughout the course of a 48-minute game.
Yeah, I think the Pacers are a little like poor man's Cavs, kind of, where the Pacers are. Rick Carlisle's playing 10 dudes in the playoffs right now.
Sure is.
The Pacers are getting big games from all over their roster, but it's just like, where's your high level talent?
Mm-hmm.
The Cavs go Donovan, Darius, Evan Mobley, all-star level players. Jarrett Allen's a former all-star.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter would rank, I don't know, third? Could be third best shot creator on the Pacers.
Yeah, probably.
It might be.
Might be.
Can't
Maybe
start.
fourth. Maybe
Can't
fourth.
start. It's conversation. The Pacers are going to be relying on a lot of home road role players kind of guys to come through. The Cavs have I think the core 4 plus pick a bench guy, you can rely on that being pretty solid for you every night, right? You know what you're getting out of those spots, and that's just I'm with you. That's a difficult proposition for the Pacers to match.
And I don't want to get too far ahead. We will get into a little bit about the future series, Eastern Conference semifinals, Eastern Conference finals.
Oh my God!
But I do want to
plenty of time for that. Jeez.
100%. And I want to. We'll get to our Celtics corner. That will be at the end of the podcast, as it always is. But I do want to get into another question that I had for you guys about the Miami Heat, since we're here. Like, Tyler Hero, in an interview with The Athletic, admitted that he needed Jimmy Butler to win, admitting that like he's not a number 1 guy, right? And to me, this series, 2 back-to-back games, this was the 8th straight loss at home for the Miami Heat in the playoff series, right? So I think, to me, it seemed like the funeral of Heat culture, as not necessarily like this is the end, but like if people were to point to like this is where things start getting broken up. Eric Spoelstra is not going to be coaching the same guys. Like even Bam Adebayo after today's game said, if I know Pat Riley, this is not going to be the same roster that we have. So unless we bring in new guys with the same mentality, with the same will, with the same drive as what we have built here as in Heat culture, it could be a different mentality than what they've had for previous seasons. What do you guys think about what was said by Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and just where the Heat are standing in the Eastern Conference today?
This is a players' league. This is a stars' league. They don't have one. Point blank, period. Tyler Hero is not Batman. He's never going to be Batman. He's a really good Robin. Really good Robin. Bam Adebayo is not Batman. He's not. Never going to be. really good Alfred. Is he Alfred? And Tyler Hero is Robin?
Tyler Hero is
No,
Alfred.
Tyler
Bam
Hero is
Robin
Alfred.
and Tyler Hero is
Tyler
Alfred?
Hero is Alfred.
All right.
Yeah.
So either way, neither one of them is Batman. Neither one of them is an alpha. And like we talk about heat culture, and that's true. Like there is something to that. And Pat Riley is a big part of that, and Eric Spoelstra is a big part of that. But this is a players' league, and players set the culture in a lot of ways. The culture of the Cavs changed when Donovan Mitchell arrived. It gave them confidence. It gave them hope. It gave them a new standard. It gave them somebody that can do the things that we have seen Donovan do throughout the course of his time with the Cavs. So if Miami goes out this offseason and they trade for Giannis, heat culture's back, right? If Miami goes out and they trade for Ja Morant, then heat culture is more back. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to sit here and say heat culture, heat culture, heat culture. Like that thing's true, but like a lot of the people that were so part of building that heat culture and like making it synonymous with are gone. Like Alonzo Mourning wasn't walking through the door. LeBron James is playing in Los Angeles. Like Chris Bosh wasn't walking through the door. Dwayne Wade wasn't walking. Like, yeah, that's a big problem when you don't have guys that can uphold a standard and play to that standard that you want to set. So Eric Spoelstra's part of it. Pat Riley's part of it. Miami and the tradition that it has is part of it. But you need players that are good enough to carry out that culture. And Davion Mitchell is not. And Alec Burks is not. And Nikola Jovic is not. And Jaime Jaquez is not. So they do have to make changes this offseason. Everybody inside that organization knows it. Everybody that covers the Miami Heat, they know it too. Because otherwise, it's just going to be a team that's fighting for the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference again, just like it's been.
Yeah, to me, heat culture is the ability to sustain relevancy across multiple cores, from Wade, LeBron, Bosh to very briefly Wade, Bosh to Jimmy Butler. And now we're on to the next iteration of whatever that's going to look like. And to a lesser extent, like you're finding your Max Struess's, your Haywood Highsmiths, your Gabe Vince's, Caleb Martin's, etc. Which you'll notice more once you get the next guy.
Yeah.
And who you always believe that that is within their grasp because of what they've done, because of the precedent they've set, because Pat Riley can dump the rings on the table still, because people recognize Spoelstra as one of the best coaches in the league now. I gotta say, the Giannis thing's
basketball in Miami.
Giannis thing's real interesting to me. It's real interesting to me. I say my first reaction to last night's game was, man, this sucks for Damian Lillard. Because this is at best, this is the beginning of the final chapter of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he can have another good year or two, but I mean, that injury at this point in his career, man, for that kind of player, just hope he makes a quick recovery first and foremost. And then if you're Giannis and the Bucks, you're both looking at each other like, look, dude, what are we supposed to do now?
I mean, Giannis is on the bench. Like, I don't know if y'all all seen the little cutaway to Giannis just thinking and looking into an abyss.
I think Giannis has too much pride. I think he'll come out playing like a madman for about 8 minutes tomorrow. After that, I really wonder what it's going to look like. If it's a classic, like Giannis needs 90 seconds of rest and the Bucks go -7 during that 90 seconds. If he's out, if it starts to snowball, I feel like we could see a similar situation to what we saw tonight with the Heat. Just a group acknowledgement of, this ain't happening.
Does Doc Rivers pull a reverse JJ Redick and play Giannis the first 24 minutes to see how far they can get.
And Giannis needs to play 50 of 48 minutes tomorrow for them to win that
game. That's what I'm saying.
And I'm sure he'll if they're in it, he'll implore Doc to keep him in the game at all times. He's an S tier competitor, alpha of the alphas. But if they lose, particularly if they lose the way I kind of think they're going to lose, I mean, how can he not look around and start surveying his options? And if you're Milwaukee at this point, I know you're out your picks. At this point, though, what other options do you have? Like, at what point does it stop becoming productive for the Bucks to chase the 5th seed with Giannis every year with no real possibility of getting that? Like, you have to pull a real rabbit out of your hat here, or you need to look reality hard in the face and say, okay, what can we get for this guy?
I mean, back-to-back first-round exits is ugly, especially after trading for Dame and ideally thinking that was going to take you back to a championship. But Chris, I know you have a great grasp on how the NBA landscape looks, not only now, but for the future. And if Dame's career ends this year, like if that's the wrap, because we know he's a family man, right? And obviously this is more talking about the people rather than the game itself, because we have to do that as well. Like, if that's the case and Dame's career comes to an end on an Achilles tear, obviously he's going to try to work its way back because he is a competitor as well. But I think Giannis is looking around like, who else can I look to? Y'all got me Kyle Kuzma, of all people. Like,
yeah. Look, I mean, I think there are 6 or 7 players in the NBA that teams that are hoping to get a star are eyeing. And some of these aren't established stars yet, but they're at least worth watching because you feel like that guy is better than what you already have and would improve your team to some kind of level. Who knows what level exactly? Ja, Zion, Giannis, KD, Devin Booker, Lauri Markkanen, and Domas Sabonis. Those are the main ones that teams are really paying attention to. And obviously some of those are better than others, and I think you could probably throw Embiid in there too, given everything that Philadelphia has had to deal with related to him and given everything that happened with their franchise this past year. So obviously some of those impact in a different kind of way. Some of those are more high-level players, but some of them also change the landscape of the NBA. And that's the beauty of the NBA to me. One off season, you think you know something about the NBA. You think you know how things are going to play out and who the contenders are going to be. And then the trade dominoes start, and then all of a sudden the league looks different. I mean, think about the domino that fell the minute that Damian Lillard got traded and what that led to. So one domino falls, what else happens? And it's going to be fascinating to watch. And you can believe that these Miami Heat are going to be involved in a lot of those conversations.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Maybe Orlando. Oh. Maybe Orlando gets involved in those conversations. The Knicks are always going to be involved in high-level conversations like that. Atlanta could get involved in those conversations. So it'll be fascinating to see, how this all unfolds. But the landscape in the NBA, it can change quickly this offseason. There's no doubt about that. And the Giannis thing, jeez, what a stick of dynamite that would be.
I'll tell you this. I don't think they are best suited to acquire him. but don't let the Miami Heat get Giannis. That is a perfect match of culture and star. And that is just the kind of reignition that Spoelstra and Pat Riley would need to, because if that happens, everything else is on the table. We're on another big three watch. We're on low every minimum contract, value minimum contract guy wants to go there. Like it's summer of 2010 all over again. and I think you want to maybe say there's some awkwardness with the fit of Bam and Giannis, but Bam's already starting to shoot three. I don't know why it took Bam this long to start shooting threes, but I'm glad we're here. I'm glad he's shooting them with confidence. It's like regardless of what the next iteration of the Miami Heat look like, I think that's a swing skill for that franchise. Like if Bam can become, hilariously, if Bam can become Evan Mobley from 3-point range, that could transform the Miami Heat's entire reality. Even if they don't get a super duper megastar like Giannis, even if they just continue doing their usual Miami Heat thing of making, small, good roster decisions here, finding good draft picks, digging up a second round pick from Kalamazoo that turns into a 10-year NBA veteran. Just that sort of like Bam shooting threes could change. Bam shooting threes consistently in this series could have been, maybe it wins you a game and keeps you engaged long enough to not embarrass yourself twice in front of your home fans. I think that's a fascinating thing to monitor going forward.
And Jimmy, the other team to watch, and I failed to mention them, Houston is primed to make a big move this offseason. They have the assets, certainly, to pull it off.
Jimmy, I love your full circle moment, and I got to give you credit for it because I remember having this conversation with you in the summer about Evan Mobley's growth and needing to see it before you could fully become an Evan Mobley, like, oh, yeah, he's going to shoot threes, he's going to do his thing. So seeing it in the playoffs and now comparing it to Bam, I think that's brought you over the hump, my guy. I think we've seen it in person and all these things. And I just thinking about the Miami Heat potential starting lineup. This is me just in my head thinking about it. Like Davion Mitchell, Tyler Hero, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's not horrible.
Davion Mitchell, restricted free agent. I don't know who Davion Mitchell's agent is, but he's going to be sending the first two games of this series to every GM in the league. Every GM in the league. He shot 40% from three the last 30 games of the season. It's a legitimate 3-and-D piece. What's that? You don't have cap space either? Okay, click.
I think that's a great point. And obviously, we have to wait and see what happens in tomorrow's game to do a full dive into the Boston Celtics for our Celtics corner. But obviously, they play against the Orlando Magic in their fifth game of that series. They have a 3-1 series lead. Chris, you shake your head. I know the series is not competitive as we know it not to be, but the Orlando Magic held the Boston Celtics under 100 points the other night. I'm not saying it's anything to keep an eye on, as we have all predicted that the series will wrap up shortly.
I have a legit question about this. Do we think the Orlando Magic have discovered something of a formula to slow down the Celtics offense? This idea that if you're big enough and switchy enough, you can bait these guys into the bad stuff.
100%. You definitely can bait them into the bad stuff. I did want to point out beforehand that Drew Holiday is out for tomorrow's game and Jaylen Brown is questionable for tomorrow's game. Those are two big factors for how the Boston Celtics operate. Obviously, Jason Tatum is still dealing with the bone bruise, but he's played well enough afterwards to show that he can play through it. Chris, what do you think about what Jimmy's question is?
I think in theory, yes, but you have to have the personnel to do that. When the Warriors were going through their dynasty and they were winning these championships, small ball became the big thing, right? But only one team had Draymond Green to play the small ball five. So the idea of it always made a lot of sense. Sure. The idea of being a switch-heavy team against the Celtics and forcing them into isolation and maybe making them settle for mid-range jumpers and take them out of their comfort zone and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, the idea of it, certainly I think there's merit to it. The problem is only one team has that group of personnel, right? It's Orlando. Like, there's a reason why Orlando is a top 5 defense in the NBA. There's a reason why well, there are a couple of reasons why Orlando neutralized the Cavs offense last year and took them to 7 games in the playoffs. Part of it was they were coached by JB Bickerstaff and not Kenny Atkinson. The other part of it was they didn't have Ty Jerome. The other part of it was Evan Mobley wasn't the same kind of player and Darius Garland wasn't the same kind of player. And the other part of it was they have the kind of personnel that bothers you. Like, that's who they are. They're annoying to play against. They're pesky. They're physical. They can't score. They can't shoot. So they got to muck it up. They got to ugly it up. They got to find a different kind of way. So I commend them for the way that they have defended Boston in this particular series. It's gotten them a 3-1 series deficit, but, moral victories. They've done some positive things on the defensive end of the floor to make Boston's offense a little bit more mortal. Let's put it that way. So if you have all of the players that Orlando has on the defensive end of the floor to be that level of switchy and be that productive switchy, then have at it. But not a lot of teams have that kind of personnel. The Cavs kind of do.
This is why I'm bringing it up. I just think as we go, I mean, we're per usual, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but I just think the offense defense decisions for Kenny are going to get really interesting as we get deeper into the playoffs, because Chris just said right there, one of the reasons that the Cavs offense looked so bad against Orlando last year is because they didn't have Ty Jerome. The Celtics are going to treat Ty Jerome like the Cavs treated Tyler Hero in the first round in the Eastern Conference Finals. If they see each other, that's what it's going to be. And I just, these are the kinds of things that so to try to bring us full circle here. The Cavs looked so freaking awesome. It looks like they could never lose another game. The last 2 games. And by the way, they didn't have their all-star point guard.
Yep.
But it's not this, like, going forward, the challenges that you're going to have to solve are going to be a little bit more complicated. And the Cavs are at the point, right? Here's what my point here is, the Cavs are at the point right now where everyone else needs to adjust to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to always be the case. And maybe Indiana might not make them get there. I don't know. But when we get to Boston, it's just there's going to be a lot of interesting either ors.
100%.
The other thing about Orlando is, so Orlando switches, right? Like, who's the targeted guy? Is there one?
For Boston's defense?
Cole Anthony, if he's out there.
Boston's, but he hasn't been playing much.
Right.
So if Boston is on offense and Orlando is going to switch on defense,
Lightning Bolt, Corey Joseph.
I don't know that there's like a glaring targetable player for the Magic when they do that. And I think that's part of what Boston has run into. Like, what's the easiest path to success offensively? What's the matchup that we prefer when we're on offense, when they go to that switch-heavy approach? If we're talking about the Cavs, they don't have the same personnel. They don't have the same makeup. There are guys, right? The easiest answer is Darius Garland. The other possible answer is pull Evan Mobley out to the perimeter and see if you can beat him off the dribble. Kawhi did it. James Harden did it for the Clippers. Jason Tatum's capable. Jaylen Brown's capable. So that'll be fascinating for me to watch if the Cavs and Celtics meet in the conference finals like a lot of people expect. And that's part of the reason why, I wonder about the Cavs with that. Maybe it's Max Strus, by the way, it was in a recent game between the Cavs and the Celtics. But, like, You're not picking on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You're not picking on Franz Wagner. At the very least, Paolo Banchero is long, athletic, and he's strong too. Like, you're not picking on Wendell Carter Jr. and you're not picking
Anthony
on
Black's
Jonathan
been
Isaac.
good too.
Exactly. So I just think if the Cavs go switch, and they're not going to just switch everything. They're going to mix their defensive coverages. They're going to change things up because that's what they do, and they have the personnel to do that. But if the Cavs go switch heavy, there are more attackable players than what Orlando has, and it makes it easier for Boston to potentially find more success on the offensive end than what they have found in this particular series against Orlando. That's just my opinion.
Jimmy, I'm glad you brought it up, man, because that was a great portion of Celtics corner, right? Looking into, as even though it is looking extremely far ahead, and obviously we expect Indiana to dispatch of the Milwaukee Bucks tomorrow, but looking all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think that kind of scheming, that kind of defensive matchup, that kind of outlook and principles that the Cavs will have to adjust to is an important thing to look at, and it only would have been talked about if we're talking about the Orlando Magic series, because I feel like, frankly, that's the only other team in the East defensively that switches the same way that the Cleveland Cavaliers do. But before we get out of here, I know we just hit the hour mark. Chris, Jimmy, tonight was a historic game. Is there anything that you wanted to add before we got out of here?
No, not a thing. I think we covered it all.
Yeah, I'm good talking about the 37-win Miami Heat. I enjoyed my time. I enjoyed my time analyzing their terrible offense, and I will look forward to watching Rick Carlisle's going forward.
And obviously, as Jimmy tweeted out earlier today, more than likely Miami might have had their bags packed to Cancun before this game got started. At least it looked that way. But
Cavs won by 55. What else is there to talk about? Can't believe they didn't reach 60. Well, they did at one point, but they couldn't maintain the 60-point lead. Slackers.
Well, they had their bench in. I think that's a good portion as to why, Chris. But to the fact that the Cavs bench was able to extend their lead as much as they did, shout out Jalen Tyson, Javonte Green, Tristan Thompson, all of them. You know, we gotta show love. But
I brought up to one of the Cavs players what the record was, and that it was 58. He was like, "What was our margin?" I said 55, and he jokingly said, "Damn it, Jalen."
Damn it, Rook.
Damn it, Rook. What are you doing? Go score another basket or two.
Forgot the donuts, forgot to hold the 60-point lead. I hope they don't fill his car with popcorn this time for that. But maybe they take him out and he has to buy the first round of drinks on Miami Beach tonight. Maybe that's what the punishment will be for not holding a 58 or 60-point lead.
Fill his car with something else. Miami.
Oh boy.
South Beach related.
On that note,
with all that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs Insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. This is where you can send in your weekly questions for our Hey Chris episode of the podcast. Join the Cavs community. It's only $3.99 a month. And if you subscribe, you can sign up and get a 14-day free trial. That's great for the playoff coverage that we give y'all on a daily basis. Or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page and join for $3.99 a month. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around, because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.